Hello, my name is Chenesai.
My name is Fiona.
You are watching
Connect.
Create.
Welcome to the Law and IP Masterclass. Meet the Masters. Noreen Chenesai Mangoma is a project leader, qualified lawyer and trade strategist in the creative industry economy across Africa. A community engagement specialist, she is a social change agent whose values are anchored by authenticity, collaboration and inclusivity. Passionate about education, sustainable trade and building sustainable systems as value chains, Chenesai brings a polymath's view to every project she embarks on. She is a former student of the renowned Monte Cassino Girls High School in Macheke, Zimbabwe, who graduated magna cum laude in law from the University of Pretoria in 2012. Since then, she's grown beyond her legal background to build a multidisciplinary career that spans fashion, creative economies, international trade, community upliftment, and education. Fiona Chandaengerwa is a bright, talented, and ambitious lawyer who possesses a vast wealth of knowledge, together with a proven record of providing indispensable advice and delivering positive outcomes. Fiona is constantly focused on resolving legal issues and always looking for ways to improve and evolve processes. Fiona is currently a legal advisor at an international property firm in Harare. Her main areas of focus are business law, commercial litigation, and investment law. Fiona is a law graduate from the University of KwaZulu-Natal with a firm grasp on South African law. She also holds a Master of Law in Trade Investment and Business Law in Africa. Prior to being a legal advisor, Fiona was an associate at a top law firm in Harare. Her main areas of practice included civil litigation with a 90% success rate, drafting and negotiating agreements. Fiona is also an event and fashion designer in her spare time. Connect Create is supported by the British Council through the Digital Collaboration Agile Grant that helps to promote and enhance the profiles of women in leadership and to support creative skills development.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chenesai Mangoma. I am the founder and current director of Chenesai Africa. I say current because we have such big plans with Chenesai Africa, but this is where I am. I am the current director of Chenesai Africa. It is a three-part self-trading entity that offers fashion anthropology. We have a community upliftment portfolio, and then we have a project management portfolio. So why a three-part entity? It's combining all the three things I love and trying to understand how they can all fuse together. And I'm going to tell you all the three things I love. I love how fashion is an expression of culture and people. I absolutely love the idea of uplifting communities using trade and investment. And I absolutely love the aspect of engaging with communities and finding solutions from the ground up. And what I do exceptionally good at is going into that community, engaging with the people, loving the people, and I hope they love me back, and finding win-win solutions. And our thrust at Chenesai Africa is really, how do we trade for development? So not aid, but trade. So how do we encourage our communities and understand what it is that they're good at producing, value add, and allow them to produce it at scale, and importantly, allow them to access markets sustainably. Some of the things that we are fighting as Chenesai Africa, some of the goals that we want long-term to service are the issue of intergenerational poverty, early child marriage caused mostly by in these communities that we see early dropouts out of school, and also just the idea of boosting our creative and cultural industries as a creative economy, and seeing how the law can serve as creatives in a sustainable way so that they can move from a micro business to a small business to a medium business.
Hi, my name is Fiona Chandaengerwa. I am a lawyer, born and raised in Zimbabwe. I studied law in South Africa and came back home to practice law. I practiced law for a bit at a private firm for about 3-4 years before going to do my master's in trade and investment law. After I came back, I became an in-house lawyer, and I'm also a creative, by the way. I am a fashion designer. I've got a fashion line, Poised Collection, and I also do events. I'm an event planner. So that's how I express my creativity. Why did I decide to do law? Well, I think I've always been a straight and narrow kind of person. So it kind of really did fit me well. Now it's just trying to find your path and trying to find what suits you and what's ideal. It's good that it's very flexible, and it gives you perspective in narrowing exactly what you want to do, because you get to meet different kinds of people and experience different kind of businesses and ideas that just flow through. So it really is a good way in which to find exactly your bearings and what you want to do in life.
Some of the inspiration behind my work, and this is interesting because I was recently working on a document that had me actually thinking in depth about why I'm here, what I started, and where I'm going with it. And years ago when I started out in legal practice, I probably thought I enjoyed legal practice. And it is possible at law school, we were always told that as lawyers, you have a career opportunity. You can do whatever you want beyond just serving as a lawyer. And interesting for me is I think it never really sat in because I was top of my class. I was brilliant, graduated cum laude. All my colleagues and all my peers at that point were going into practice. And I thought this was what I was going to do. I was going to get into practice, become a partner, blah, blah, blah. So, yes, I joined practice and I was bothered because when I look at the statistics for Zimbabwe, 67.7% of our population is in the rural areas, right? And it's always bothered me because I looked at the clientele that we service and we are servicing, because of course we are here for make a business. So you consult based on your pocket. And I imagine that most Zimbabweans don't have access to what we're offering or what I am offering as a personal lawyer, standing on their own. And importantly, I started looking around the industries that were productive in Zimbabwe and underserviced. And the creative industries jumped out for me because my grandmother was a creative. And I grew up going to the Harare Trade Fair, all these international fairs, and Harare Showgrounds, my fondest memory with my grandmother. So, of course, the creative industries jumped out of me, and clothes jumped further because I am naturally love fashion, love clothes, and I dabble in design, sustainable design. So this is what led to me saying, you know what, I am taking this plunge. And I remember telling the parents that I'm leaving legal practice and I'm going to go into creative industries. At that point, I think they were shocked, they were stunned, and they really didn't have much comment except how are you going to make a living? And this is really a serious question, a question at that point that I was really comfortable because when I started off trading my fashion brand, Chenesai Studio, we started making clothes at that point. We had a great market. We could access the markets that I used to live in. I used to live in South Africa. I used to live in the US. I had colleagues all over the world who could actually buy these clothes for a good price. So that was working. We made returns, we grew the business. But at that point, we hadn't looked at the sustainable value chain. What is selling of clothes only becomes sustainable when you can scale and sell at larger numbers. And the 10, 15, the 20, the units, the small units are great when you're trying to make change, but not when you're trying to build an entity. So eventually we morphed into Chenesai Africa, which becomes now me using all my skill sets and my resources. I am a trade lawyer. This is what I'm skilled at. This is what I'm trained at. And I have over the years taken classes of and training around community development, social change, social norms. So combining all these trainings, all these learnings, all this education, life experiences as well, we then started managing a very successful, to date, I think, we've led some really groundbreaking projects at Chenesai Africa. Consulting in the creative industries and how might we improve trade and investment in the creative industries by building systems and processes. So some of the work, what is interesting about the work we do is it is very long term. So it's impossible for me static to tell you, oh, we have won with any one of the projects that I have led or curated or collaborated on. Yet what I do know is we have set balls in motion, and these have been fireballs. And these fireballs have now turned into, contributed directly, indirectly, into what I want to say, some systemic change in our creative industries. I love what's happening in the creative industries of Zimbabwe. I love the contributions that we've been able to make, but I also love seeing others that are doing the most and contributing in creating a footprint for the Zimbabwean creative sector. But importantly, I love what the government has also done by introducing the first policy framework for the creative and cultural industry. So that is a big stride. But these frameworks are not self-serving. They need people to work on them, to actualize them, to make sure that they actually become legislation, and then it becomes useful to the people. So over the last couple of years, we have now gone back to our grassroots mandate and started looking particularly at what are the talents, what are the traders in the different locations, and decentralizing this idea of creative industries. What is being made, what is being produced, how is it being produced, and particularly trying to push for projects that allow us to start gathering data about the creative industries. We do not have enough data, that goes without saying. So I was really proud when we were part of the first ecosystem mapping of the creative industries of Zimbabwe. Equally proud when we are working as creative tribes alongside with a lot of powerful minds to start gathering this data, documenting stories of women, the narrative, so that we can collate this data and churn it out into some meaningful language that allow investors to see the potential of our industries. Without that data, we do not see us rolling over or churning profits successfully or sustainably. So yes, you can have great talent, but great talent um, without without investment, without understanding the IP regiments, is talent lost to the world. So this is what we have been pushing at with Chenesai Africa. That's me, very long-winded, of course, but again, there's no short way of describing the work we have been doing, are doing, and are looking forward to doing and continuing in the creative industries of Africa.
Okay, I would think that I've always been a creative, but I think I just didn't find a way to express it. I think it wasn't until I met my husband, who's actually a full-on creative, that I found means and ways to express my creativity. It's also because of the person that I've grown up being and, you know, been taught to be. It's very difficult to balance the two because, you know, there's that straight and narrow way. You've got that proper career path and you're supposed to do this and that. And where you want to leave all that and just become a full-on creative and just, you know, create. Because I've always loved fashion. So that was never anything that was difficult for me to get into. I've always loved clothes and, you know, my how I look, my outward how I always look and dress has always been important to me. And even, I mean, in the legal profession, it's also very important. So that was not difficult to venture into. Event planning, not so difficult either, because, you know, I plan a lot of trips and holidays, and it was just skills that you naturally had that you then incline towards. Because I think I realized that I could do it. Like when I planned my lobola, I was like, oh, okay. Oh, I could actually do this. And also it was easier to get into because my aunt has got a full-blown events company. So it wasn't hard to get into that. But I really like it. You know, it shows by how you can just actually work for free, because I don't mind, because I just want to, bring out that expression of creativity. And just, I guess it's because 9 to 5, really, you're basically just in the office working. And then, okay, I guess not always working. Sometimes you're on Pinterest looking for ideas. You've got a function or an event, and you're looking for ideas, and you're trying to figure out how you put this together. So I guess that's where the balance comes from, is that there's the work aspect where it's work and it's just straight and narrow office, but there's also the time that you just have to just think creatively and find a place to express your creativity. I think that's what was always hard for me, is that how to express it. My husband is the one who taught me how to express creativity. I think that was why I was attracted to him, because he's creative and he could express his creativity easily. So yeah.
When I went, in fact, when I applied for law school, I had applied to 2 law schools in South Africa. I applied to UCT and I applied to University of Pretoria. And when I applied to University of Pretoria, when I got accepted into University of Pretoria, they have a Center for Human Rights at University of Pretoria. I was almost sure that I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, right? I was very sure. So I said, University of Pretoria is my go-to, because they have the first Center of Human Rights in Africa, and it is happening there. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to study human rights law. I think it was in my second year, and I have to remember which year we take these courses, but I believe it was in our second year when we did constitutional law, which I was extremely efficient at. And I think that was actually one of my best subjects overall in the year. I won the constitutional law award because there is a statement that our professor said during our classes: the law should serve the people, and when it stops serving the people, then it's not law. And this is when I started looking at the human rights angle of it and saying, well, how do we give these people human rights? It is a human right to have human rights, but how do we award human rights when it almost seems that they could almost be synonymous to calling them money rights, right? Because what I was now beginning to see is when you have money, it appears that you have more rights. And in the war-stricken countries, a lot of human rights violations were going on. And I was thinking, well, I wonder if they had more money, would their rights be protected? I mean, these are questions that are going on in my little head at second year law school. And I was then, when I finished, I said to myself, I'm going to go into policy and going to go to pursue a master's in policy. And then I sat down with the late Dean Haynes, who was the director at our Center of Comparative and International Law at the University of Pretoria. And at some point, Dean Haynes was, if I remember, if I'm saying it correctly, let's scrub that. I'm going to talk to you about Dean Haynes in the capacity that I knew him. So when I worked in the law faculty during my tenure at university, during my learnings at University of Pretoria, I used to ride the elevator every morning at 6 a.m. I've always been an early riser, always been a goal-getter. I'm up, I go to work. So 5 o'clock I was up, 6 o'clock I was in the elevator going to the mercantile department where I was serving as an academic associate. And at 6 o'clock, coincidentally, Dean Haynes was also taking the elevator to go to his office. At that point, he was the dean of the law faculty. And we would meet. It really just happened. We would meet in the elevator, unplanned, and we would discuss back and forth. And he would ask me my ambition, what I wanted to do. And he never offered advice at any point. He just listened. He would just really ask these probing questions. Eventually, when I finished, just before I set off leaving the campus, I had a meeting with him, and he said, you really, really must consider doing the trade and international law masters in Africa. that is offered. If you do very well in your grades, you can apply and you can get a scholarship. I know you have other plans, you've been thinking about doing other things, but I am suggesting that you think about this. And I had not looked at that master's, the Trade International Law in Africa master's. And I asked him, why do you think I should do this? And he says to me, well, there's something about what you're saying, tying human rights and development, economic development, that you could find an answer to in your trade and investment law masters. Imagine that. And at this point, I wasn't even seeing what he was saying. It has taken me over 10 years after my first degree to completely understand what Dean Haynes was saying, what he was seeing, right? And initially, I had registered after I did my master's. I then applied to different universities to do a master's in public administrations and policy frameworks. And I said, you know what, there's no harm in it. Let me apply for the master's in international trade and investment law as well. And lo and behold, I got into all the applications that I put out. And the difference with the international trade and investment law, I got a full scholarship. It was a full scholarship for the year. Also to study, stipend. I was like, I've got this, I'm going for it. And it's only after I started trade and investment law and afterwards that I then realized, you know what, there is a synergy in my interests. My interests are capacity building, human development, but not from let's impose human rights, but how do we allow, capacitate communities to trade more, to trade in a sustainable way. And importantly, then I decided to specialize in creative industries because this is what I knew, this was what I grew up on, this is what I was taught. My grandmother was a creative, my dad is a creative. So it was so easy to get into the creative industry and start understanding some of the nuances of the creative economy, building my footsteps, and learning from some of the great minds in the creative industries, collaborating, mentorship I've gone through, just to safely say I understand what the creative economy is and I can understand my offer to it from a trade and investment law perspective in Africa. And here I am. So to a young person studying law or with the ambition of studying law, in hindsight, with hindsight knowledge, I think it's absolutely crucial for you to understand who you are trying to serve with the law that you're practicing. So it's not enough to serve. In Zimbabwe, we have 67.7% of the population in the rural communities. If we all ended up in private practice, what is the offering that we are giving the masses of people that also need legal counsel or understanding of legal frameworks, but do not have access to our private practices? That's the long of it.
Okay, I'm going to start from a business perspective. Creatives are really difficult to manage. I think they really find it difficult to fall into line. So they're very, very difficult people to manage and to put structure around. It is a work and a half. Someone can be really, really talented, but once you start putting structure around them and want them to fall into line and to work a certain way, then it becomes very, very difficult to work with them. They're generally just free for people that just want to work in their own sort of way without any restrictions or direction, really. So that is the most difficult thing about creatives. And then legally, that is also a nightmare, because a lot of stuff that I noticed is that some of these people start work, they don't even have agreements signed, they haven't even agreed on how payment is going to be made. It is a nightmare, because sometimes they do work and then people don't pay, and then it's work that was commissioned. So technically it doesn't really belong to you, but the person hasn't paid. So, it's my work. It's a nightmare, really. So creatives and just having structure around them and just any sort of business acumen I think that's the biggest weakness, that they're not able to work with proper structures around them. So agreements and things like that, you sometimes you find that agreements are signed after the fact, after they've done all the work, and you're like, okay, how is this agreement being backdated? And yeah, it's even you find people that work with creatives behave the same way. They've got that culture as well, where you get agreements that you get work commission that's not been properly agreed to. I mean, there's emails back and forth, but sometimes it's like a WhatsApp conversation or a phone call. There's no formal structure where you can hold someone to book for the work that you've commissioned.
Research your work. There is nothing else that you can't even talk about innovation without understanding what's out there, what has been done, and how you are innovating your space. I think it is our mandate and our responsibilities as creators, because the creative industry, the creative sector, to be a creative means to provide solutions for existing problems. So when I say research, it is worthless for us as creative to create things that are not serving the masses in our communities. Then our communities, a creative lens is so crucial to development in the community, because we look at problems and identify situations in a different lens, and we find innovative solutions to these problems. That's what it means to be a creative. I call it a creative engagement for change. We have a responsibility as creative to do our due diligence, to research the areas we want to get into. Even if I am going to be a fashion designer, if I'm going to make clothes, I need to make sure that the clothes I'm making can be bought by the markets that I'm serving. And we all can't service a niche market, right? There is such a huge responsibility on the shoulders of creatives to be more committed to seeing sustainable change in the communities that we service. It is not an easy job, because whenever you introduce a new way of doing things, an innovation, it's not always easy to get money for it, or it's not always easy to get income for it. However, I am so believed, after reading a plethora of stories about people that have innovated in this world, that if you stay steadfast and if your solution is actually tailored and targeted at solving a real and existing problem, you will find the money. So before we even go into intellectual property, what you're creating, non-disclosure agreements, memorandum of agreements, actual contracts, we need to be dedicated as creatives to doing due diligence. And when I say that, I'm going to be very clear on what that would entail. It would entail you understanding the scope of the industry that you operate in. What is this creative economy? Right. What is the creative industries in Zimbabwe? What is the research that has been done about it? What are the policy frameworks that support the industries? Who are the major players? And importantly, how am I going to come in and be an asset? This is why a lot of our creators, in instance, sometimes they go unnoticed, not because they're not creating wonderful things, but they're already creating things that are already existing on the market, or rather they're creating products that the market is not demanding. The singular thing I am imploring and asking creators to do is a due diligence of the work you want to create, the how, the what, the policies, the players. And once you've done that, you will quickly know who to collaborate with. There is power in numbers. Together we know more. The nature of creative industries is such that when we collaborate across sector, we produce more impactful work. That's just how it works. But without that due diligence, I don't think we can even get to a space where we talk about non-disclosure agreements. Because for you to have a non-disclosure agreement or to agree with an entity to sign a non-disclosure agreement, there has to be something interestingly new and novel about what you're introducing to the scope, into the space. So research, guys, due diligence, and read, read, read. If you are not a reader, access those who read, such as Chenesai Africa, and ask for a consultation. I just want to know a summary of what's happening in the creative industries. We are happy to write you a brief opinion and point you to the right documents and right people that can get you an in-depth insight into the industry that you want to service and allow you to produce lasting, sustainable, intergenerational products and services.
Okay, I'm not going to say get into a contract because I know you're not going to listen to me. So I'm going to say have at least a project charter where you've agreed on the work that has been commissioned, where there's everything that you've listed down, and also have a very good paper trail. Don't just WhatsApp people messages and say, oh, this is what we've agreed, and then they give you changes, and then it's just on WhatsApp, it's back and forth, or it's a phone call. Have it written somewhere. Have it written somewhere. If you can have a contract, the better, that would be ideal, because then also you would have also clear terms of when your payment's going to come through, whether you're going to get 50% upfront, or you're going to get your money when you're done, or do you give them the work before they've paid you? All those things need to be agreed beforehand, so that you don't have problems when you now finish the work and you now want to get paid. Because creative work is very painful. I know that, because you put in a lot of thought and a lot of your mind is taken up. So when you now finish that work, you now want to get paid. So I would say, if you can get a contract, please go ahead and do that. Something just very simple, very basic, where you just write your name and their name and the work. I think the most important thing is the description of the work and the timeline of when you're supposed to deliver the work, and also when the payment is supposed to be made and how much money that is. And even if they default with the payment, is there going to be interest that's charged on that default? All those things are very important, because I know a lot of the times creatives get very frustrated when they're chasing up payments, people are not paying, because people take creative work very lightly and they don't take it seriously, and it's really sad. But I think some of the things that contribute to that is the way there's no structure, where they just commission a website and say, can you do a website for me? But there's no clear agreement or clear articulation of where and how the delivery would be. Unlike when I do work as a lawyer, it's very clear how I'm going to be paid and how the delivery is going to be. So those things are very, very important. I mean, if you can't get it, you can actually just download template agreements from the internet. Like, it's simple things of just how you're going to do your work. If you can't get an agreement, then maybe you can just have a charter, a project charter, where you've agreed. And even, I know there's usually a lot of changes in the back and forth. You have to outline how many changes that you allow to your work, before, because I know sometimes there's so many changes, it becomes something completely different. So all those things have to be taken into account. And also, even now with the value of the Zimbabwean dollar, when you raise an invoice at the beginning of your work, I mean, it's very different to 6 months down the line. That invoice is not valid anymore. the value has gone down tremendously. So all those things need to be taken into account and possibly put into an agreement.
So I have had great opportunity to work with a lot of great brands in Zim. And I think the thing I always tell people the most is, please understand the value you're bringing to the table. No one is going to understand it for you. But don't get into the practice of working with people that are uncomfortable about writing things down. I've made this mistake in my career, right? Word of mouth is not a way of operating. Believe me, it is the fastest way to break relationships. It is the fastest way to end yourself up in a pile of mess that you have nothing to go back to. I propose that if you are going to start anything or have an interest in doing anything with anyone for the sake of sustainability, and even just for the sake of clarity, put down an MOU. You do not have to be a lawyer to know how to draft an MOU. You know, the beauty about living in the digital era is there is so much online. But importantly, any agreement, and an MOU, by the way, is not a legal binding document for all intents and purposes. It's very different from a contract, right? Which you can, which is legally binding, right? So for an MOU to be binding, it actually has to state it within the MOU. So which is why it is always important when you are drafting an MOU or getting into these agreements to either operate the template or consult someone who understands the space. Or number three, there are organizations, I know Stimulus, for instance, Stimulus has these access to legal aid or legal advice. I've worked with them on a few things run by Rudo, I think creative business opportunities, where you can get advice on what to put in your MOU so that you have an operational template. So once you've got it, you've paid for it once, that consult, you've got a template that you can manipulate for different agreements. But guys, there's no easy way of saying this. Just don't get involved with people that are not wanting to write things down and put their signature and their identity to it. I learned from me. I have made those mistakes and they have cost me a lot. And sometimes it could actually cost you your reputation, because your reputation when you're building a business is everything to you. So it's important that you get involved, or you get to talking, you get into projects with people that are not hesitant to say, you know what, let's put pen to paper. Let's draft this memorandum of understanding. Let's be clear about the terms we're agreeing on. Let's be clear about our responsibilities. Let's be clear about the expected outcomes. And let's agree whether this is enforceable or not. And let's set timeframes. And importantly, what's in it for me? So if it's going to be a paying thing, whatever, make sure it is documented. Whether the payment is coming in the future, put it down. Just shy away from having general conversations and rolling out something. It doesn't work. Even if you're prototyping, even if you're testing the waters, it doesn't work. The singular most important document for you to start deliberating on anything that you want to do is an MOU. An NDA is a bit more intricate, right? And I like that the Business Arts South Africa, BASA, have actually worked with Adams and Adams, the law firm in South Africa. They actually have a template of an non-disclosure agreement for the South African jurisdiction. So have a look at it, because when you go to consult with your legal aid or legal, and I said, the organization that I know offers this is Stimulus. So knock on their doors and go and ask for help. when you look at the template, you can say, look, I've got this template. I want to make sure that it becomes enforceable in Zimbabwe, because jurisdictions have different laws. But the singular most important agreement is an MOU. And when things get intense and very serious about your creation, is the issue of the NDA. And overally, between the MOU and the NDA is the understanding of the intellectual property regime. What are you creating? Do you need a trademark? Do you need a copyright? What is it that you need? Right. And ARIPO, which is based in Belgravia, Harare, have an open door policy. Walk in there and have a consult about, look, I'm a creative. This is what I have. Does it need an IP? Is it a trademark? Is it trademarkable? Is it a copyright? Is it a patent? All of these things are available to you. And again, I go back to due diligence, ladies and gentlemen. You would never know that ARIPO is an open door policy. Neither would you know that Stimulus offers these services or has capacity to direct you to the right places if you don't know the operational space that you're trying to operate in. MOU, NDA, intellectual property. I think, to me, it's a basket. It can be one over the other. They need to kind of talk together and work together. And I can't tell you any more seriously or any more gravely. I have made huge mistakes, right, that have cost me because I was sloppy. And yes, me, the very knowledgeable lawyer, was sloppy. I trusted instead of just merely understanding it's business, it's not personal. Let's put it down, let's agree, and let's move forward.
I will start with an MOU. An MOU basically means a memorandum of understanding. So memorandum of understanding usually is like a pre-contract. It's like an agreement it's an agreement to make an agreement at times. Sometimes people just put the full-on agreement in there, but there's suspensive clauses. So it's basically you and I have decided to build a house, but we are going to put that into an understanding that Ora and Fiona have decided to build a house. So that's what a memorandum of understanding is. Then a contract is now where you've come to an actual agreement and you lay down the terms of how you're going to build that house, who's going to pay what, who's going to do what. That's basically the difference between the two. And a non-disclosure agreement is an agreement that you sign, well, a piece of paper really, that you sign that you agree not to disclose certain things that you've been told. Or sometimes I know that if you've been commissioned work, they don't, and the firm does not want anybody to know what they're doing. That's that sort of thing. It also covers a lot. It depends on the scope of the non-disclosure agreement. So I think the name really says it all. That it's a non-disclosure agreement. It's really something that you agree to not disclose certain secrets or certain information that they may deem sensitive. Intellectual property is basically your mind, things that you compute from your mind, that work that comes from in here, from your mind, and that expression. It's a lot of things, really. Yeah, this is a difficult question to try and put it down, to break it down, because there's so many aspects of it, of intellectual property. I mean, there's copyrights, there's trademarks, there's patents. There's traditional cultural expressions. There's so many aspects of intellectual property. It's very difficult to narrow. But off the cuff, like copyright is like, you know, musical work, or like for you, or your poetry and things like that. And for copyright, you actually don't need to register. It naturally accrues to you, and you can voluntarily then register. So copyright is the easiest and the easiest to prove. And also it's the cheapest to have, because you don't have that burden of registration. Registration in Zimbabwe is a nightmare. It takes about 12 months for something to be registered. So yeah. I would say that you always need a lawyer. You always need a lawyer at any point. I mean, it's just for you to have for it to be preventative, because a lot of the times people get themselves caught up in all these agreements and they don't understand what the agreements have to do with. So I know that technically sometimes the value of the contract doesn't justify you getting a lawyer. So sometimes you can just wave it off and just do the work. But um, I would say the bigger the value of the contract, the more you require a lawyer. Simply because, like you said, there's clauses in there that you may not understand, like jurisdiction, like a jurisdiction clause, really, that says that this contract is governed by the laws of Zimbabwe. Fair and fine, that's perfect, because we are in Zimbabwe. But sometimes you can say this contract is governed by the laws of England, and we are not in England. So for you to well, it can be governed by the laws of England, and it can also say that only the courts of England can deal with it. Then you have a problem. Then it becomes very difficult to enforce, and for you to uphold that contract. But generally, I know that creatives work across borders. It's very borderless transactions. So I would say that creatives just need to understand general terms of contracts. Because I know some people get commissions from people from websites like Fiverr and stuff. So I would say that just general terms should just be understood. Take time to also educate yourself. Don't just say that a lawyer will do everything for me, because lawyers sometimes mess up as well. So take time to actually educate yourself. Read through a contract when you get it. Read through it. And if you see that I'm failing to understand, then even ask for clarity. Clarity, usually, some lawyers don't even charge you for that. You know, if you have a lawyer friend or whatever, I'm not encouraging this behavior, by the way. But some people don't charge you to just read through a contract and tell you what it means and what it says. I mean, a lot of the times it's you know, it's a 10-15 minute job. So it's not something that's too crazy. So just read through it, and just don't just sign things without reading through. Reading is also very important, even for you. Pick out terms. Even if you see something that you don't understand, Google it and see, what does it mean. I mean, Google has all the answers. Even if you want to get into an agreement yourself, maybe if you want, if Google templates don't really do it for you, maybe get that first template from an actual lawyer and ask them to have a very simplified template for you, that you understand all the terms, so that you can always just use that same contract as well, because your work doesn't really change. It's really just who you're working with. So maybe just do that, get that first template and work with that one.
So we have a website which kind of documents some of the work we've done over the years at www.chenesaiafrica.com. I am absolutely and shamelessly visible on LinkedIn. I do like LinkedIn because I am really trying to build competent skills for my creative industries practice. So I'm shamelessly active on LinkedIn. I used to be extremely active on Instagram. And yes, I am on Instagram now, but I'm now running profiles or portfolios for certain projects. So we have Year of Ubuntu that is running with the Honorable Violeta Bulk, as well as Dr. Maureen Madziva. You find it at Year of Ubuntu across all platforms. We also have a website, Year of Ubuntu. What is Year of Ubuntu about? In my systems thinking mindset, because I'm a systems thinker, it is really coming back to the core of what allows us to function, to create impact. If we understood the idea of Ubuntu, I am because you are, how would it impact the way we collaborate? How would it change our contribution to our industries? And Year of Ubuntu was inspired by what happened with COVID-19 and the lockdowns, where really the world became reliant on me understanding that I need to wear my mask for you to be safe. Me understanding that I need to be, if I'm fluey, I need to stay at home for you to be safe. So that is the Year of Ubuntu. The other interesting piece of work that we are working on is Creative Tribe ZW. Creative Tribe ZW is really a collective of women champions in the creative industries that have agreed to come together to really think about the systems in the creative industries. What are the policy frameworks? And our mandate when I envisioned Creative Tribes was really to have a sharp lens on data collection about women creators, their contribution. We want to be data centric, where our impact as creative women becomes based on data. No longer, oh, there are so many women in the creative industries. Oh, the women are doing this. But we wanted to be saying, oh, there are 67% women in the creative industries, and this is their contribution to the GDP. And these are the businesses that they have run. Oh, this is an intergenerational business. This business was started by the grandmother. That's the type of work that I look forward to serving with many other great minds at the Creative Tribes ZW. We are also across many platforms. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Creative Tribes ZW, and we also have a website, thanks to amazing partners that have made all these things possible. The other work that I do is my chat series. My chat series is Let's Chat About Trade. What is this machine called trade? Let's demystify trade in the creative economy, right? What does it actually mean for traders on the ground? This year, we have kind of pivoted and started looking at trade, not from a policy framework anymore, but from a value chain. So we're looking at traders on the ground. What are their experience, their lived experiences, and looking at the value chain that they are building and some of the problems in that value chain. And the whole idea with that is to marry the two, the aspect of a trade on the ground and the policy frameworks that are in place. And importantly, to be able to sustainably feed into the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, AfCFTA. AfCFTA is creates the largest trade agreement the world has ever seen, a trade area the world has ever seen. And it is up to us to now demystify these concepts, these ideas for the people, the actual traders, because some of them don't understand it. And sometimes it's to aggregate. How do we centralize? How do we bring these things together so that we can have market penetration at scale? And we also have Muzezo Mpati, which we are working on. We started working on last year with some exciting partners. One of them is Farai. And the exciting thing about Muzezo Mpati is we are trying to create a multidisciplinary, centralized creative industries market. So if you have ever attended HIFA, we are saying we want to have a HIFA every day, all day for the creative industries of Zimbabwe. That is the ambition. And why we are ambitioning for that, as back to my ambition for increase of trade, is my hypothesis with this work is if we aggregate services and goods in the creative industries, we will access markets at scale. we will be able to penetrate markets. We will be able to bring in value addition trainings. Look at the work that has just been done by Vanuvamwe, led by Dr. Pamela. Vanuvamwe has created a handbag collection, which is fantastic, but at the core of the collection is the work she has done on value addition, and the potential of value addition across our creative industries should be spoken about highly, because that is where the greatest opportunity is. We have talent, sometimes it's raw, and if we work collectively to add value, we can generate more profits and build intergenerational businesses. And currently I am serving in a community, which is exciting for me. I'm serving at a company called Taona Produce, and I am working on building community. And one of my thrusts in this, having the opportunity to work in the farming community, is to diversify the skills. And of course, you know what I'm about to say, right? Diversification of skills means Chenesai is saying, where are the creators in these farming regions? And how might we harness the creative talent? How might we value add? And how might we improve the livelihoods, the earnings of these workers in these regions beyond just one paycheck? And finally, we have set up an after-school program. The Mill Group after-school program is meant to increase the learning experience of learners in the farming communities. And currently it's based out of Marondera. The idea of the Mill Group after-school program is not to duplicate what the learners are learning in schools, but to really enhance the learning experience. So we offer things like life skills. We also offer training in creative industry skills, of course, such as sewing, culinary arts, etc. And the whole idea of the after-school program, remember the mandate of Chenesai Africa is to really eradicate intergenerational poverty by keeping children in school, reducing teen pregnancies, and improving livelihoods in a sustainable way. How do we trade for development? So what cuts across all the projects, I've been careful to mention the main ones, otherwise we'll be at this all day. What cuts across all the work that we do is finding systemic ways to improve trade for development, and really finding ways to build systems cross-sector in a collaborative spirit to increase impact on how we might improve trade in the creative industries, look at the creative economy of Africa, collate data, and be able to tell a data-centric narrative about these sectors and what trade can do towards building intergenerational businesses for our and youth creatives.
I'm going to plug my events page because I think that's where a lot is happening there. I think that's where a lot of my attention is right now. So follow me at BMACE Events, BMACE_events on Instagram and BMACE Events on Facebook, and call us for functions. I know you guys are going to get float one soon, or you're going to have some function at home, a birthday party, mom's birthday party or something. So give us a call. We love to design and plan your event. Instagram, it's Fiona_the_1, Fiona the one. Facebook, it's Fiona Chandaengerwa. If you want to reach me on email, it's fionachanda@gmail.com, FIONACHANDA@gmail.com. Maybe I'll give you free legal advice.
That brings us to the end of this masterclass. Thank you for watching Connect Create. Did you enjoy this masterclass? Make sure you like, share, and follow us on all our social media platforms. If you would like to receive exclusive content and behind the scenes of this masterclass, make sure you click the link in the description and sign up for the Connect Create directory. This project was brought to you by AfriDigital in partnership with creativestribe.zw, supported by the British Council through the Digital Collaboration Agile Grant that helps to promote and enhance the profiles of women in leadership and to support creative skills development.